here, which is up in the water for this on Sat. Kia ora te mai. Hei ora tātou I te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai. Ia tātou katoa. So, welcome again to the meeting. We have an apology. Actually, Councillor Ridgely is attending online, I think. She's not here yet, but she did tell us she was joining, and Councillor Ellams is late for the meeting. He will be here shortly, so that's not an apology. It's a note. Any conflicts of interest for this agenda from anyone different from the new ones? Okay. Do we have any acknowledgements or tributes since the last meeting? Thank you again. Okay, we have 3 people who requested public participation, and we will hear you in this little bit you approached us. You have 5 minutes each, and if you within that, if you've got any time, if you finish at 4 minutes and there's time for the question, and if councillor has a question, that would be great. But if not, if there's any other information or any issues, we can get back to you in writing after after the council meeting. So we're going to start with Louise Lister. Welcome to the meeting. And you've got a couple of things to talk about. So go.
I have been a person regularly made submissions over the last 5 or 6 years on matters of strategic importance to the district, but I have generally limited myself to focus on Martinborough and urban residents because that's who I feel I identify with. And so today I'm going to stray a little bit from the high level focus and talk about a matter that's personal but relates to the infrastructure investment that the council is doing around free water, because I'm conscious that that time is ticking down, and I wanted to bring a matter to your attention regarding the south-west access into Martinborough, or as we say, a gateway to the south, and that relates to issues we have with traffic on the road there. And I'll just start that little point by saying I'm absolutely delighted to see that the signposts reducing speed restrictions on that road have been put up today. And I would love to see some communication about that to the community, and also if there's any funds left over in the low risk fund for some perhaps landscaping improvements to help that. And there's a really good reason for that, which I'll come to at the end. Now, I wanted to come along today because of the Martinborough Wastewater Treatment Plant Concept Plan, which I support, and I support that you are building in capacity for growth, although it's not clear to residents quite what that growth is. But you did mention the spatial plan, and I just wanted to alert new councillors in particular, the new employees of council in particular, that current spatial plan for Martinborough was really only directed at identifying areas for potential rezoning. It was essentially a bid by land developers to get a zoning designation for the district plan. That's great. I think the next step has to be, if not a full-blown master plan consultation, then further work needs to look at the scale of urban development and the timing. And why is that important to me as an urban ratepayer? It's because the borrowing costs of 3 waters is a regressive tax on the urban ratepayer of all districts, not just Martinborough. So if you're investing $4 million in a wastewater treatment plant or purchasing a $4 million house on an interest-only mortgage, then that householder is paying the interest cost. And we know that there's going to be a really heavy impact on the urban ratepayer. And I will talk about it, affordability is not the issue anymore, it's reasonableness. And I would like to see council say, well, what is a reasonable cost that we can impose? And by looking to objective standards, what are other districts charging? Realising that there's a cap, or what is it costing someone who's not connected to the system to access the system? So I would do well to move out of town and buy all my potable water from the district, because my guess it would be cheaper than the convenience of having it supplied to my gate. So that's just when we think about reasonableness of how much we can bear, that's something to consider. So I support growth, but I want the community and council to understand that the district benefits from the local economy. And it seems fair to me that we should also put priority on renewals of existing infrastructure. And here I want to make the point that between Ferry Road and Dublin Road, traffic with wide axles, meaning trailers going to the dump, or heavy traffic, or wide utes or camper vans, they hit 18 metal covers.
Half a minute to go.
And that 18 metal covers creates intolerable noise for the residents. And it's kind of hard to be asked to pay mortgage costs on capacity growth when there has been no investment in the growth that has occurred to date. And I can explain the growth. We've had a trucking business move out there that attracts trucks from all over the North Island for their certificate of fitness. We have logging trucks, we have visitors, and importantly, we have a lot of trailers travelling back from the dump. And those unsuspended trailers hitting 18 metal covers is intolerable.
Thank you. No, I get that. Thank you very much. We will get back to you on those issues. They've been recorded and we've all made lists. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Louise. Thank you.
Okay, the next person is Peter Isaac. Peter, welcome. Again, same deal, 5 minutes for you. Right, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Peter Isaac and I am chairman of SWAG, South Wairarapa Whenua organisation, dedicated to drawing attention to the problem of the solar plants. And the organisation, the Action Group, was founded when there were several solar farms amounting to close to 1,000 acres in and around Greytown, based on the Greytown substation. Since then, one has dropped out and we're now, as a group, focused on the one above the Taharaniko aquifer. Now, what has prompted my intervention among you learned folk in this meeting is that it is only a few weeks ago that we intercepted in a German technical publication, luckily one of us could speak German, a notice to the effect that a 22-hectare battery farm was proposed for the same Taharaniko aquifer. And it was then we became genuinely involved, and it was even more so when we found that a dedicated Australian broker under the title of Rock Solid was actively canvassing for a suitable 22-hectare site above the aquifer, which, as you all know, is very shallow. And so we had to contemplate the notion of a mass electrochemical battery installation, admittedly in containers, poised just a few feet above the aquifer, used by locals for their water bores. And at this point, it was drawn to our attention to the effect that this would have. And what I'm going to say now is emphasise, as we drove it, I noticed that you were actively marketing, which has not been done before in a village sense, Martinborough as the wine village. So imagine what is going to happen internationally when it is discovered, when there is the perception that this same terroir is sharing a aquifer, groundwater, with a 22-hectare electrochemical plant. and this is very important. Nobody wants to countenance it. When you bring this matter up, everybody says, oh, I've got something better to think about. And it is very serious for them. And I feel for them. And especially so now that we understand that Spain is now banning these same installations within CUI of any such solar farm. And the reason is that batteries go together with a solar farm, as do wheels on a car. This was constantly denied during the environmental court hearing. It was totally denied that there were batteries going to be involved, which indicates the danger that these pose. And luckily we found in this German technical journal in Snow Coincidence that the funders, underwriters at that stage were based in Hamburg of what is planned for the Taharaniko aquifer. Now, you may well ask what is going to happen to the many people who live in this is a scattered area. One recalls the Great Small Farms Association, all these 40-acre lots now broken up, and a lot of people living around this battery when, as everybody's still busy denying, in spite of it being on the Transpower site, as coupled with the proposed solar farm when this comes in. And I think it's easy to see that the effect on the high premium horticulture, let alone the dairy farms, we're talking here vineyards, olive groves, what the consequence will be. So I'm talking to you now, and I'm neither a grape nor olive grower, of what is coming our way on this, and it is no good to go. Thank you, Dame Fran. It is no good people denying that there won't be batteries. They have to be, they're essential to a plant such as a solar plant of this dimension, 500 acres, and it has to be there. So on that note, I will keep quiet and we'll be happy to take any questions.
I don't think we've got time, we've got 5 seconds, but thank you very much for coming. That's very helpful.
Can I just ask for a point of clarification?
No, actually.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's
You're
all.
going to be Bridget about.
Yeah, no, good as gone. Yes.
Right out.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, now the third person today is Mary Tupoki. Mary, welcome. And you know the deal, 5 minutes, and you're going to talk to us about the, I think, comms on following the storm. Thank you.
My name is Mary Tupoki. I live in Pirino in the Whakatūmutanga Road, in the Tauranga River. There are 2 roads in the valley. Whakatūmutanga Road runs parallel to the river, one side, and Te Rata Road on the other side. During the last weather event, our valley was arguably the most affected area in the area. After the event, the valley was almost unrecognisable. The river had more than doubled its width, and after reaching its banks, took farmland, vegetation, Te Rata Road, and the approach to the Taronganui Bridge with it. Te Rata Road was underwater with 100 metres completely washed out. I saw a vehicle partly submerged as it had tried to drive down the road. Whoever was driving it had got out safely, abandoning it. I rang the council office to put a road closed sign up. The road was closed for a week, with metal trucks passing my house every 15 minutes for 5 days. The families living up the road were isolated until the road was repaired. Even then, the road was not easy to drive on. There are 23 families living up the valley, most of them up the Whakatūmutanga Road, which was not closed, but all affected in some way. Some of the residents are lifestylers with small blocks, but most work on farms. One house was flooded with silt through it. This is the 4th time this has happened since Cyclone Gabriel, and we are preparing now for another event this weekend. Even if it does not come this weekend, it will certainly come again at some stage. Another issue in our district is the Pirinoa Hall. A family evacuated the hall because their homes were flooded, but they told me they had to sleep in their cars because the hall was so cold and the roof was leaking. This is clearly not good enough, and what should be done about it? There has to be somewhere to go if your house is unsafe. It seems to me it would be wise to take a lesson from these events and not only repair, but also manage and, if possible, mitigate the effects. I have seen and spoken with regional council personnel, but have not seen any district council vehicles. I do not know what knowledge you have of our valley and the trauma we have. So I'm here in the hope that especially you, our elected representatives, will come down and see for yourselves what I'm thinking about.
Thanks very much for that, Mary. You do have a couple of minutes left, so any questions, anyone? No? Mary, thank you for that. We do have a lot of information. We have been working closely with the regional council. So now are hopefully going to be more helpful in some respects. And also with other emergency management services. But we can get back to you and let you know. I think what you've said indicates that we need to make sure that residents understand the communication channels. Really important that we get them out to people so they know where to look for information.
Many people are traumatised.
Yes,
Yes. It doesn't affect me personally because the river didn't come down our side of the valley.
Yeah.
But they are my neighbours and they are my friends. And I think in times where you have difficulties, you have to stick together and support each other.
Thank you very much. Going on the agenda, we have no business, so I want to. One on the 19th of February. You've all read these in detail. Would somebody like to move these? Thank you. Oh gosh, they're all moving. Councillor Isaacs and Councillor Roll, so I think I'll just go down the table.
That's not the only thing to do with that.
And then the extraordinary meeting on the 11th of March. Sorry. Rachel had a hand up.
I just wanted to request a small.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just trying to go back to it now.
Rachel, hand up a little bit.
Yeah.
Go.
You wanted to do a long much space with.
That's all right.
Okay, 9.2, the amendment to the naming of public roads. I've gone onto the website and had a look at what was there. And under 4.2.2, it says applicants must provide up to 3 proposed names, which to me kind of says you could give 1, 2 or 3, but I think we agreed that you could give 3. So I'd like to suggest or request that be amended to applicants must provide 3 proposed names.
But did we agree to up to 3? I think with the minutes have to reflect what we agreed to. We can't change.
No, I
Are you
really.
suggesting we agreed
In
3?
the policy, my understanding was, based on our discussion, that we agreed that participants would submit 3 names. Because the issue arose with the fact that only 1 name had been submitted.
What we're saying, yeah, because they only gave us 1.
They only gave us
And
1.
up to 3 could be 1.
Could be 1.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. And that probably was the tenor of the discussion too, so I think we would
So since the all minor edits will be completed. Part.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yep, thank you for that. Other than that, you were happy with
Yes.
those minutes?
Yep.
Okay, so the other minutes are the extraordinary meeting, no, hang on, possibly excluded, we don't get in there, do we? And in the next part, sorry,
No, so
sorry.
they're not public extended, so bring through.
Oh, they've been through, so they're part of the other one. They're just part of the other one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Minutes of the extraordinary meeting on the 11th of March. Moved by councillor Taylor, seconded by councillor Watson. Were you?
No, I was the way of.
You were not here, so I can't use your name in vain. And councillor Archer is here. Thank you. Everybody okay about these minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's great. Now we have, matters arising from previous meetings. So we have a fraud and corruption policy that was considered by the Risk and Assurance Committee. Do we want somebody to talk to this? Do we need? Yeah, maybe just in case. It's a weighty policy as it should be on fraud and corruption. So maybe we understand, we've read it. Are there any questions on the policy itself? Okay. Put it politely.
Chair,
You want to say to the expert?
no, Chair, no, it's been through the RAC
Yes.
and been interrogated fairly thoroughly. It incorporates the OAG guidelines that are important and nothing to add.
I think it's pretty tidy actually, so we'll have a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, councillor Clark, councillor Bosley. All those in favour, arguments no carried. Thank you very much for that.
Hey, Fran, I think Andrea's waiting to come on. Yeah.
That's popped up in our screen. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Welcome, councillor. Sorry about the back of my head there. Okay, now we have section 10.1 approval to operate outside treasury policy, an interim hedging approach for water related debt, subject of major media attention this morning. Now, Chief Executive, do you want to have this?
I would like to place through the chair. I would like to, in light of what was in the paper this morning, reassure members that the approach that we're taking here is purely related to the water debt. Policy that we have around treasury management says when our debt reaches a certain level, we should enter into hedging agreements. They usually bind you for longer periods of time. To break hedging agreements costs a lot of money, and we, under guidance from Bank Treasury Services, don't believe that's a prudent way to go for the debt that is potentially going to be on our books for no more than 15 months. What we're also doing under the guidance of Bancorp is to use floating rate debt at the moment, and that is currently running at 2.7% interest as opposed to fixed term being around 5%. So unless those interest rates dramatically change and flick the other way, which is not anticipated right now, we will stay with floating rate debt. Just to reassure you, we can move from floating to fixed at any time. What we can't do is move quickly from fixed to floating. If you fix, you get a penalty or a break clause. So at the moment, it makes sense for us to stay floating at a 2.7% rate through LGFA. They're also bringing in almost like a cash facility option for councils as well, which we're currently investigating with support from who you know from the Risk and Assurance meeting. So just to reassure you that we are doing everything we can here to be prudent, knowing that the debt is going to be on our books for around 15 months. We don't want to lock ourselves into things that are going to cost money to break. And we equally don't want to have to maintain debt once the transition happens to the water. It would be far easier for us to just wind the debt out and let the new entity take the debt at the time that they need it.
And just to add to that, the new entity, because it will have scale, will be able to do better loan terms than we can. And that's the whole point of it. It's getting the scale there. And that's anticipated that they will be able to borrow for longer and at better rates than we'll be able to. Any discussion or questions? Any questions?
Just thanks, my friend. Yeah, I'm really keen to see that we get continuous attraction under our capital works program. That obviously this additional borrowing will assist us in getting through and over the line as quickly as possible. So it certainly makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think my question was answered earlier this morning, and I think
Yes.
path of least regret was the quote that I picked up from that.
So councillor Bosler, you happy to move this?
Yeah, I am.
I've got a question.
Oh, you, oh, another question, sorry, councillor.
And it's really primary for the record purposes, but just the question about how certain are we of transferring the water debt to the new CCO? That's the first part of it.
Stands up.
Why would we, sorry, why would we not?
No, I'm just
I
wondering
think
for the record.
saying,
Yes.
yeah, for the record, it will be,
That's-
that stands up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then the second question basically relates to, from a compliance perspective, you had the compliance chart there, but were we required to seek external review?
Doing a review of.
Have someone outside council offices
Or
look,
Bancorp.
Bancorp or whatever.
Advising us.
advising.
Yes, we've engaged Bancorp Services, so who reports through the RAC is supporting us in all of this process around debt management. And the water entity stand-up team will have oversight of the debt that transfers and the mechanics of how we calculate debt that transfers to the new entity. So they'll largely use the same process that was being used prior to the change to local waters done well.
One question, also just for the record. Is,
I understand this since there's been publicity about this.
yes, is about the shifting from the anticipated 28.5 million of debt increasing to the 38 to 40 million over the coming months is outlined in where?
The long-term plan.
Long-term plan, thank you.
Thank you. Useful things to have on record.
Thinking that
Councillor
your last point there in terms of the papers, it'll be useful to actually add those points in the papers. Because you assume them and we kind of assume them as well. And you've asked those questions because it's safer not to assume them.
And it must be a comment.
Yeah. Yes.
Still happy to move.
Okay, moved by councillor Boswell.
I will,
moved by councillor Taylor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, now we get to the exciting thing other than building. Job control fees and charges. I'd like to say, in all my political life and in our seat and local government, this and alcohol licensing are the worst issues there are. Central government never wants to do anything about dog control to help out local government, and they leave it all to local government. And it's always the same result. Now they have finally decided after a terrible election in Northland, not the first, that they will do something. So we will be getting hopefully some much better legislation that we can look at when we do this issue in the long-term plan, which is where we will do a very deep dive into it. Councillor Elms, welcome. We've put you up here and you're right here in time for the dog control. Dog control. I was hoping you'd arrive at the time. So I'm just going to say, councillor, for your sake, that the government is changing the law on this, which is always a difficult issue for any council, and the government's always been, successive governments have never wanted to make a stand, but now I think they are, which we got for us. And we will be going into this in a very detailed way in the long-term plan later this year. We start on that. And this recommendation is all about public versus private good and just making sure we're keeping that level of non-RAC funds, you know, at the level that the previous council decided it should. So I'm going to hand over now to Leah. Welcome. This is your first meeting. Yes. Councillor Smith, our new.
No.
So,
So yes, Claire joined us 3 weeks ago. It seems like it was ago. New planning regulatory group manager, so looking after the planning team, the building control team, and the environmental services team. Comes to us as we put out in our press release with a wealth of knowledge of these areas, having worked with Nelson in these exact areas before, and I'm already seeing a really big lifting of burden from my shoulders back to where it should be in the team. So good to have her on board, and good to have a full SLT now.
Yeah, welcome, Claire.
Thank you very much. I've come back into week 3 and already there's an awful lot going on. So
more than happy to help. And Mia's been fabulous too in terms of the manager. So yes. Would you like me to do a little bit of an intro?
I think it would be useful to give an overview. Yeah.
I know dogs are contentious. My experience parking is even worse, so I'm glad that we don't have any parking issues. Council's required under the Dog Control Act to make sure that they've got a process around dog control, and that includes enforcement and registration. So it's not an opt-out thing. We have to do something in this space. The key issue here for you, and some of the other issues that you might have some questions around, in my view, are probably the best place to consider through the long-term plan process. But right now, what we're trying to do is ensure that that public-private split is more appropriate. So currently it sits at 54%, where those that own the dogs are meeting the costs. So 46% of the costs are sitting with ratepayers. This proposal is looking to bring that up to 59%, which is a little bit better, still not probably within this, but you know, we've got to be between 50 and 80%, so it's a little bit better than the current 54%. Under the annual plan, there was already an anticipation that there would be a 3% increase in costs. So the recommended option that we've got here is actually just looking at another 2%. So 5% in total is the recommendation for the increase. If there isn't a decision made today, you might have further information that you seek, but if there isn't a decision today, the risk is that we're going to miss the opportunity for this financial year to look at an increase in charges, because we're required under the legislation to give a month's notice of an increase in charges. And I understand your next meeting is about the 28th of May. Which is not going to enable us to have that time to be able to do it. Dog registrations expire on the 30th of June, and so we want to make sure that we've given at least a month's notice to dog owners that there will be a small increase. And I thought just to give you a little bit of a picture more widely. So we're proposing here that, and I'm just going to use rural dogs as an example, that we increase the rural dog fee to $87 from $83 currently. By way of comparison, Upper Hutt has a $90 fee currently, Carterton currently has a $75 fee, and Masterton has a $119.50 fee for the same rural dog.
Correct.
So we're already out of sync largely with most of our neighbours. So that's just giving you a bit of a picture of this is really just bringing us, nudging us a little bit further along, and certainly is not out of sync with our neighbours in terms of charges that they make. So happy to answer any particular
So I
question.
think Mia's here to welcome Mia, and there will be questions. And do you want to say anything in introduction, Mia, before you have questions? We'll get them moved and then we can have the questions.
No, I think what thank you, Chair, through the Chair. The detail that's been provided in there is to give you as much information as where we're coming from, all the options available. You'll see included in the appendixes where we currently sit, which will give you a visual of where each of those increases or how those increases will look. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll get it moved and seconded first. Somebody want to move it? Yes, thank you, Councillor Clark and Councillor Archer. Moved and seconded. Right, questions first. Who's got questions?
I imagine Aidan has.
I've got some questions.
Go for it. You put your hand up first. So Councillor Allen's holding his fire. No?
Thank you for the paper. I accept that there is the mix between use charges and the amount used of rates has shifted, and that this is to correct that anomaly. But I suppose if I was looking at it from a ratepayer's perspective, my question would be, well, what am I getting for it from a service perspective? And I just thought it would have been helpful, possibly to even annex to the paper, what currently those charges and rates costs actually go to, and what are we getting for it? So that's just a comment to make. But looking ahead, you mentioned the long-term plan. One of the things I'd hope we could explore, and this comes to the broader question of shared services with other councils. And I think this is one area that we could probably look at,
from a shared services perspective?
So through the mayor, entirely agree. It's one of the areas that we should be doing. I think it's more broader than that in my regulatory space. So this is one of them. And we have, for example, over the Easter period, already had in place an arrangement with Carterton where they stepped in, and I got called on Monday with a dog incident. So we were already in the throes of considering it.
That's good to see. Yeah. Yep.
Any other? I'm sorry, Councillor Evans.
Thanks, Mayor. It's, interesting paper, thank you. Originally, when councillors were told about it, we were told that the proposal was going to be for a 10% increase. However, now it's a 5% increase. And going back through the paper, it says that over the last 3 years, we have had 18% increases in dog food. So this 5% will take us to 23% increase over the last 4 years in dog foods. At the moment, on the basis of this paper, I'm not happy with, and I'm uncomfortable with a 5% increase on the basis that it's in accordance with council's finance policy. There's no information here for me to see what numbers of dogs registered there are in the district. Doesn't show us how many urban, how many rural dogs there are, how many dangerous dogs are registered, how many complaints our dog control officers have investigated over the last year, how many impounds we've had in the facility. For me, I can't see any justification for a 5%, 10% or 15% increase. And if we're going to increase fees or any rate or rates across the board, for this particular case, there's no evidence for me that there's been any view of or any review to see, can we make any savings? Can we make 5% savings? Can we make 10% savings? I know, our dog owners are also ratepayers. I don't think our ratepayers are going, or our dog owners are going to be happy with the justification that we're increasing to 5%, not just on the basis of finance policy. I appreciate that we can't get all that data and all that information right now. But on the basis of what I see in front of me, I'm not happy to go ahead with this. I just don't see any evidence to justify a 5% increase based on the fact that we don't have any information, as discussed previously. I'm glad to see that there's some discussion about shared service. I think that should have happened a long time ago. I'll wait with bated breath and interest to see where that goes, because surely we can, with economy and scale and shared services across not just their immediate neighbouring council, but perhaps Marsden as well, we could provide a better service and possibly a cheaper service for our dog owners. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. Now we've got some hands ups. Councillor Old, do we want to answer, is there anything you can answer from that first, and then councillor Old again?
So through the mayor, the specific comment around the 5% increase, except that that's for council to decide. I would note that in just inflation alone, that's sitting at about 2.8%. So for this year, there is an additional cost that's sitting there where we have to buy things in for the pound, etc. So just have that in the back of your mind. I do know that I can give you a little bit of statistical information. It may be of some help to you. So in terms of the number of complaints that we get in the 24-25 year, 80% of the complaints were in the urban area and 20% were in the rural area. And this financial year to date, we've had 58% complaints in the urban space and 41% in the rural space. So based on our current statistics, we have got a total of 3,336 registered dogs.
across South Wairarapa. That is an increase of 8 dogs from last financial year. So it's fairly, fairly
Not by much.
That's registered dogs.
Yeah.
And also to note that in terms of costs, so our animal control officers, of which we have 2, apparently we had 3 a year or so ago, there are now 2. So we've driven some efficiency in terms of numbers, but they are also doing other work. So they don't just do dog control in terms of their costs. They do, I was at the office yesterday, random things like sheep on the road. There's also things like pollution, complaints about smoke, etc. So they're not just focused around dog control. Approximately, we think about 70% of their workload is dog related.
Thanks for that. Is that other 30%, is that charged against another costing?
Yes, it is. So bear that in mind in terms of you thinking around efficiencies and things. The other thing to note is that while the numbers for dog complaints might be actually, impoundments are low, there are a range of complaints that come in, a number of them, that get satisfactorily dealt with before the dog actually has to go into the pound. So the pound is the last bastion of protection, I suppose, in terms of dealing with a dangerous dog. So that kind of gives you a little bit of context about some of the numbers that are sitting behind it.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor
Yeah, just an observation and a question too. One is that I was really pleased to see that CDC were obviously assisting with that after hours service over the current Easter weekend. But one of the things that I guess I'm a little surprised about is that we actually we cut away our 24-hour service and our weekend services that for more efficient. I guess our service level reduced considerably once we did that, you know, and obviously it's worked quite well because I haven't heard any feedback from our community saying, grumbling too much about not being able to contact a dog ranger after hours. So that's working quite well. So I did ask the question about how much of a saving that did provide. I guess in terms of your operation, and I think Janice's response. Yeah, Janice's response was none. So I just want some clarity around that.
Through the chair, the discussion we were having was whether we had a third officer, because having 2 officers with constant out of hours cover meant that every other week they couldn't leave the district, they couldn't go to family events. So we were looking at bringing on a third person to give some flexibility in terms of out of hours. The decision was not to do that. So the cost never arrived, so it didn't leave. If you see where I'm going, there was never an addition to the budget, so there's no saving made. We just didn't go through.
We didn't do it.
Okay, yeah, no, I follow now. Yeah, no, that's understandable. Thank you.
The complaints or issues, there's no issues out of hours. I know that we have had dogs dealt with out of hours by the other 2 councils because they've been called to deal with dogs, and we have had charges come through from them for having to act
Excellent.
in our place. But we obviously need to have a more formal arrangement for how we do that. And it was a really good test over the Easter weekend to see whether that would work with us in Carterton, and obviously it did. So Claire and I are talking to the other councils about how we can make that a more permanent or long-term arrangement rather than employing a third officer.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you, Janice. Yeah.
So further to answer that through the chair, even though they're not any reports come in after hours, they're still reported through to both the animal control officers. So they're still attended, still addressed, still followed up on. So that work outside of all those reports outside of your 8
Regular hours, yeah.
are still worked on and followed up by those officers during daytime. So that work's still occurring. We get those reports through and they promptly act on those.
Right. Thanks.
Councillor Mosley.
Thank you, Mayor. To be honest, I was actually comfortable with 10% meters. I was kind of surprised to see it went down to 5%. Some even more comfortable with 5%.
Oh no, you can't. You've seconded this.
Yeah.
Men.
Well, I think for me it was all about this. You know, this was, if it fitted comfortably for me and it was properly grounded, not just in terms of the financial revenue policy statement, right? And that if you don't get the 5%, there's not going to be, or there will be a loss of services. And, you know, like, is that likely to happen here if this, you know, we're talking about this? I mean, I think there's more than fair that we're, yeah, exactly.
That's right. Public
Yes.
Through there, yeah.
Answer through there. Thank you. Yeah. So yes, well, I'm totally comfortable with 5%. I think it's more than reasonable for the services, especially as there's only 2 officers now. And I bumped into one of them, and Danny very not long ago was there on a course that day which left one the entire South Line.
Okay.
So thank you. Oh, that was a good paper. Thank you.
Councillor Archer.
Just some comments. Being a new councillor, I'm completely unaware of until what we've been shown for this report. I look forward to looking at more detail in the long-term plan going forward. I'm always also feel that users should pay. And I think especially in light of the rates going forward in the future, I think the more we can go direct our rates for the users, then that gives us a bit more wiggle room for the other rates.
Any other?
I just think in principle, I've got 3 dogs and I don't mind paying 5% more, that's fine. But in principle, instead of starting with policy to say that we need to move it, adjust it according to our policy, it's kind of comes back to your points around the cost of it and understanding. So that the numbers you gave us before in terms of the dogs, that sort of would be really useful in this paper. And sort of all of us as council sort of wondering how does it fit, because we're all kind of most new, right? So just having that background to give us context, even if we can't address it to the long-term plan, would be really handy. So thanks.
We will address it in the long-term plan and it will be quite detailed. We're going to have to look at all our means of pay functions because we've got a rates cap coming up anyway. We can't continue to push things onto the rate plan. So basically, we have to look at everything. Some of them will be less palatable than this, I can assure you.
This is
Anyone who hasn't spoken?
Oh, I'll just make a comment, my friend. Yeah, I've been quite impressed just in the discussion today and the informal discussion that we've had, you know, mulling this issue, just about how people are getting back to first principles of local government and so on, relating to the rates and public and private and all those things. So, yeah, I'm sort of hopefully it's a good omen for the future.
Now, we're not going to go around everybody again, but Councillor Archer has remembered something to say.
I was just going to say, like, dogs are such a diverse, like as you were saying earlier on, and I know you go to towns around where you just get completely upset with that region because of the way the dogs are just out of control in towns and things. So I think it's a topic that we really need to focus on to make sure what others having so many complaints rural too. I'm sure that it's a lot more travel time for your officers going out to rural areas, which is quite surprising.
Through there, absolutely, it is. It's time consuming. Yep.
My neighbour's got 40. So my neighbour's got 14 cats. We start registering those.
Yeah.
That's
Another gallery together. National Council.
gallery full.
Yeah. It's long-term plan.
Okay, just to point out to people that this will be coming up again in the long-term plan. I mean, we've got plenty of options. We can move more onto, you know, pets than working dogs and whatever. There's a whole lot of things you could do if you wanted to.
Okay.
You need to look at all of those things in the last couple of plans. But in the meantime, we have a recommendation to increase by 5%, which is reasonably modest given inflation, as has been pointed out since the last increase. So we're going to put the vote. Sorry, we've got that. No, Andrea has got her hand up.
I was voting.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I can't see you from the back of my head. Okay, all those in favour, I'm going to put the whole resolution. Please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, no.
No.
No. Thank you, councillor. It is carried. Now we have the Wairarapa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah.
And when I turned around to see Andrew, and I saw that Simon was on Simon Taylor's on the screen. Simon is our emergency management head, and he is currently in Northland. Northland? Yes. Who now are going to be back, and oh my gosh, they've had so much up there that it's kind of unbelievable that people are with families. So I'm glad you could help out. Look, this strategy we've had, and everybody has read it, committed it to memory. I know that because somebody did earlier say there's a lot of acronyms in emergency measures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's to receive and adopt the report, receive it and adopt the capability strategy. We are not in a position, councillors, to rewrite the strategy.
No.
So I think I'm
That's that.
happy that we'll move it, and then if there's people want some issues explained, but you know, if people really don't like this, we're gonna have to send it back to the drawing board, which I hope won't happen, given what we are also about to have at us. And as we heard earlier today, we can expect at least one event a year now, and then part of the team. So, somebody want to move?
Happy to move that.
Thank you, councillor Rowe and councillor Ellens. So I think we might just go straight to questions on this one. And we have the guru on the screen. Sorry, guys, for sitting at the end of the table, but have we got questions or comments? Yes.
In terms of the paper, page 48, it was said it was recommended to the council's adoption by Risk and Assurance Committee in March 2026. I don't recall this in the papers in the March 26 papers.
Can say that again a bit slower.
So on top of page, or pretty close to top page 48, it said the draft strategy was agreed by senior council managers responsible for EM in December 25, and you can see signatures, and so that's all cool. And recommended for the council's adoption by the Risk and Assurance Committee in March 26.
Was it RNA?
Not that I recall.
Oh, why is that in there then? Okay, we will ask the end of the table to tell us that. You know, was it meant to go to?
Eventually, it got scheduled, but I believe it was pulled.
And
Hence why it's now.
But we didn't, yeah, we put it into here, but we didn't change the paper. We need to make sure in future we do change papers. We need something. We've got another paper coming up where there was an error. Reading of the paper, we just need to make sure that it's okay. Thanks for that.
That was good.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just in terms of the strategy, were there any lessons learned from the recent weather event? First question.
Yep, well, let's do that one first. Any lessons learned? Is that Barney?
So I can add to that. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. So yes, there have been a number of lessons learned, and for each event we are learning more and more. One of the reasons we've developed this strategy and have set out, particularly around people development, is that over the last 4 to 5 years, emergency management has dropped in importance and also had dropped in visibility across all the 3 councils in the Wairarapa. So we've been developing a raft of training options to bring more people through, and I'm very pleased to say that South Wai have been very strong in supporting what we're trying to achieve in the emergency management space, and have taken the policy as an opportunity to train far more people than we need in the Emergency Operations Centre, but for those who need to understand what's happening. One of the learnings that we had out of the recent exercise is that we're over a 3 to 5 year period looking to get 3 shifts covering 24 hours a day over a 14-day period. We, in the last event, were lucky to last 5 days. We had probably 2 or 3 transitions of people in and out for various reasons, but we did find that some of the people who came in had been attending nearly all the exercises, but found it a very difficult environment to work in when you're dealing with very fast-paced, fast-moving, weather-related impacts. And you're dealing with people's lives and people who have no food or no medicine, and you're trying to do things at pace. So one of the learnings particularly is around how do we support our people before they go into events, so that when they go into these events, they're fully supported, but they understand and know what they're getting into. This last event and a lesson identified has been the amazing support that we can actually get from the new Remo regional team. They sent up 8 specialists to support our functions between Sunday and Thursday. This was a game changer in regards to the way we're responding, because we had the experts there. They're going to do the ongoing training. They were there and we're able to witness our people in action and start working in where are the gaps and what do they need to do to help support each of the functions. And I'm thinking like logistics or operations or intelligence to help us respond better in future events. The last thing is there are a number of external agencies that we integrate with, and that's the likes of Te Puni Kōkiri. We work with the Rural Support Trust very strongly with Rural Support Trust, Police, FENS and Wellington Free Ambulance. And it's during an exercise that really tests during a real event that tests what we do in an exercise does work, and we can only get better. But the relationships we are holding with each of the agencies and support partners have become stronger over the last 18 months. So while we're not perfect and we don't respond perfectly, we certainly are a lot better than we were, say, 18 months, 2 years ago.
Right, thanks for that. Councillor Taylor had another second question.
It was just, Mayor, in relation to that the council had asked the community boards to uplift the matter around increased resilience. Community resilience for when such events like these, just to make the point, it'd be useful to hear at some point about how that's going.
Yeah, a report back to council. Yeah, okay, now, there was some councillor Newlands.
Thanks, my friend. I'd just like to add that certainly over the last few years in the emergency management space, things have stepped up and have improved. Certainly from when I first came onto the community board, and the event was forecast to arrive into Wairarapa or South Wairarapa, but there wasn't much happening. And then in recent years, the EOC has been stood up early and in preparation, which has been great to see. And I can only see that this is going to be a step change of further improvement, which is great. My only question is, I read through the paper about financial impacts or financial considerations. And while I see the paper says we're not asking for budget increase or anything like, is there going to be a financial contribution needed in years to come for South Wairarapa to contribute into the Wairarapa emergency management?
What will we do now? An increase. Any increases in money required?
Any gifting would be greatly appreciated. However, for this budgetary year and the next budgetary year, I am covered. The strategy will then kick in for years 3 through 5. So we will start putting in budget increases, not for the next financial year, starting July this year, but for the following year. So that's why we've got the comment there. We are able to manage with existing resourcing, but there will be some necessary uptake in July 27, and we're just working through what does that mean.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Park.
Just in response to your comment about the staff turnover or transitions, and that it's a traumatic environment to work in, and it's probably not in the detail of the training here, but I can only assume that trauma response and emotional resilience is covered and support. I think I saw in one of your reports maybe that some debriefing was offered for members of the community and staff. I'm making these assumptions that that's all in place.
So from a staff perspective, yes, the staff will have an opportunity to do immediate debrief. It's called a hot debrief, and while everything's still topical in their minds, we then come through just a couple of weeks later, 2 weeks later, to do a full debrief when people have had time to settle and start thinking more about what was the actual issue that they faced. We do a lessons learned. So what did go well, what didn't go well, and what do you believe could be improved? We've got a report from the last event that is being was commissioned from Remo, and I say commissioned, we asked them, one of their emergency management advisors, to independently come in and talk to our staff in each of the 3 locations, collate that information, and that's in the final stages of being reviewed and ready to release back to us. From there, we'd look to get some more additional information. In the meantime, we have been working with Remo to see what opportunities we have under the Red Cross psychosocial training that is available, so we can take our staff through. This is one the Recovery Office held with the community as well as council staff through 23 and 24. Very well received, and it gives people the ability and tool sets to handle some of the stresses in these sorts of events, and it would be a great opportunity for us to continue that on. From a community perspective, we don't normally go out into the wider community unless there's a specific activity, and South Wai has completed that in one of the areas that was hit to understand the response, how did it go, what was happening. And also I went down to Pirinoa immediately after the last event and just talked to a group of people who'd gathered in the Pirinoa Hall just about emergency management, what we were doing through the event, as well as what were the next steps and how they could engage if they needed to engage.
Any questions or comments on this? Councillor Archer.
Simon, I was just wondering, like, again, being a newbie on council, reading all these documents, can we have a glossary at the end with just what all the acronyms mean? And also, obviously, the institutions and what their actual functions are? Because there's a few in there that you kind of assume, but you're kind of guessing at the same time.
Yeah.
No, I'm comfortable with that. Apologies that this has been written in a way of assumption, and so apologies for that, councillor.
That's well good.
Other questions?
Oh, it's just a comment really, Fran. I think, Nigel, you guys worked really hard on this in a really short period of time. Simon, thank you very much. It's great to have a strategy finally that, as Aidan said, there was nothing a few years ago, and now here we are. And you've done really well to pull us together, so thank you.
I think we should just take this opportunity to acknowledge the work that was done by Simon and all of the staff who were part of the response in February. It was a really good response.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simon, we had in the public participation part of the meeting today, somebody has suggested to us that we were absent because they didn't see any vehicles with SWDC written on the side. I know we weren't absent, and I know also that we work closely with the other agencies, and it may not be our vehicle that's particularly with the logo on it that's used at any time. And it seems to me that one of the things we need to think about now, learning from February, is how we let people know in advance that, things will happen and it will be a joint delivery, and we won't deliver everything. We've got the Rural Sport Trust, we've got other people, and we work with them very closely to make sure that all bases are covered, so that they understand that we are there. We haven't just all gone home to have a cup of tea while this is, after the event. And we know we were there. In fact, Councillor Ellen's kindly drove me down to meet with some residents. I mean, there was a lot of contact with locals and a lot of work, particularly on the roads and the, putting the roads back so people, they were usable again. That was driven.
Yeah.
So, but we need to let residents know as
the multi-agency response.
and they need to know which medium to go to. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Because anyway, so thank you.
That's great.
And thank you for all your work. It was brilliant. All of you.
Thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge the work of the South Wai team as well, includes Nigel, Matt and Stefan in helping to bring all this together. There's significant amount of work that's being done not only through council staff, but also, as you mentioned before, the community boards and also the team Remo, Melanie in particular, who has been preparing resilience work across the communities in South Wai since 23. So there's quite a team. It's not just me, but I would like to acknowledge them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful. And with that, I think we will receive the statute Wairarapa Emergency Management Strategy Report and adopt the Wairarapa Emergency Management Capability Strategy 25-30. All those in favour, aye?
Aye.
Carry. Thanks for that, Simon.
Thanks,
Got
Stefan.
I hope you don't get a storm up north, and I hope we don't get it down here either.
I hope you don't either, but I am tracking it for Wairarapa as well. But yes, it's quite a significant event up here. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. Kia ora.
Thanks, Ed. Bye. Okay, now we have a clear back again for the joint committee appointment. Which is, so we're kind of hoping that we don't have to reconvene the review joint committee, but in case we do, we need to have somebody on it. So the paper actually has an error in it on that second bullet point on the front, the word elected shouldn't be there. It's include 2 members, not 2 elected members for each of the district councils. Other than that, I think the paper is very. Yeah.
So through the mayor, just a couple of things. You're quite right, elected members is referenced in a couple of places in the paper. But in the recommendation, it's quite clear that we're actually just talking about members.
To have them saying that.
Absolutely. This paper will be drawn up from Masterton, Carterton and South Wairarapa. So it's been through all 3 council wording issues that are going on there. The other thing just to note is that my experience with the Environment Court mediation process, which will be part of this, is that they very often, when you go into the room and the commissioner will say, do you have the delegated authority to sign off on what you might be discussing in the room? And in most cases where it's a policy decision, absolutely it should be coming back to that joint committee just to make sure they're comfortable that the policy direction is still going in the right way. But for more minor things, so say, for example, wording change, it would be quite useful if the officer in the room, which is probably going to be me, is able to do that. So we will talk to the joint committee about whether they've got some principles by which they could then delegate to an officer some very minor decisions when
actually I'd be very happy with that. Yeah, we just.
We do this, we do it already with recommendations.
It is.
Delegate chance.
Yeah. Okay, just can we have a move in the second for these recommendations, or maybe we just do the whole lot, or we all happy with doing it all once? Okay, thanks, moved by councillor Ellen's and councillor, who hasn't moved it? Councillor Baker can move this one. Thank you. So is there any questions or discussion on this? It's pretty self-evident. Look, it's built and braced. We need to get this done, otherwise we're getting.
Rob's got a few.
Right.
Quick questions, time, Bobby.
I did need to go into the terms of reference to actually get some clarity around the joint committees in terms of the approach that they can take around the delegations and that the decisions are binding. Correct? And that they also.
Through the mayor, the ultimate decision to sign off on the whole plan as a whole comes back to council.
That is very useful because it's not covered. Secondly,
sorry, just to add to that, it would be very difficult if you were to then want an alternate approach.
Yeah, that's good. So in that vein, then can you also just clarify that any agreed settlement is split 3 ways between councils and operates up to a limit of a financial delegation?
So through the mayor, the mediation process will not be looking at awarding costs. Unlike a resource consent process, this is a mediation on a plan process. So it's the Environment Court won't be looking to do costs through the mediation process. If we end up in the actual court because we can't get to an agreement,
which a committee will again be asked to
potentially,
yep.
Then yes, there is an issue possibly around costs, and absolutely that would need to be split 3 ways. And that would come through in terms of financial delegations and budget.
And finally, just to clarify the timing of where the other councils are at with passing the same paper.
They have both, through May, they have both passed this paper.
And so, we all happy with this? Okay, then put the resolution, all those in favour, are against, no. Carried. That's it. So, reached the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, Claire, and all who served on the paper. Okay, we'll have the closing karakia. We're all ready for that.
Yep.
Can I move to
O tēnei mana piti mai makato o mahatoa
Kia ora. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, CEO and staff for all of that. And Claire, I hope that was, give everybody experience good.